It started with a sound that didn't belong on that quiet suburban street, the deep rumble of Harley engines cutting through the afternoon air like thunder rolling across a calm sky. Bikers rode in, their black vests bearing the fiery insignia of the Hells Angels, their shadows stretching long across the warm pavement. Neighbors peeked nervously from behind curtains, mothers pulled their children indoors, and even the wind seemed to pause. But amid the rumble of engines and the gleam of chrome, a smaller, softer voice trembled through the air, innocent, heartbreaking, desperate. "Sir, will you buy my bike?" The men slowed, engines idling low. At the edge of the sidewalk stood a little girl, no more than 6. Her hair was light and messy, her dress too neat for how worn her shoes looked. A pink bicycle with a white basket stood beside her, and in her hands she clutched a cardboard sign that read, "For sale." The smallest biker, or perhaps the kindest, stopped his engine and climbed off. The others followed, heavy boots thudding on the pavement. He knelt before the child, the chrome of his bike glinting behind her like a mirror reflecting a cruel world. Her name was Mira, and her eyes held something no child should carry: exhaustion. Behind her, under a distant tree, an older woman sat slumped against a trunk, wrapped in a thin blanket. Pale and fragile, the biker's throat tightened as Mira spoke again, clutching her sign a little tighter. "Please, sir. Mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in standing up when the world turns away, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner." Stories like this remind us that compassion can still change everything. The biker's name was Ryder. His brothers called him Wolf, though the nickname never quite fit. Beneath the tattoos and leather was a man who had lost more than most could imagine, a father who'd walked away, a son who never returned home, and a faith in the world he thought long gone. But that day, kneeling on the hot pavement, something stirred within him. He asked her softly what she meant, and through halting breaths and tiny tears, Mira told him everything. Her mother, Clara, had worked at a local catering company owned by Mr. Hensley, a respected CEO. When the company downsized, Clara was among those fired. She had begged him for just a few more weeks so she could feed her daughter, but Hensley didn't care. She was replaceable. Since then, Clara had been too weak to find new work. Bills piled up, the fridge emptied, and pride kept her from asking for help. Mira had taken her only toy, her pink bicycle, and decided to sell it for food. Something inside Ryder snapped the last thread holding back years of buried anger. His brothers, Tank, Viper, and Mason, had seen that look before. Without a word, they nodded. It wasn't pity they felt, it was rage. The kind born from seeing innocence crushed by greed. Ryder reached into his vest, pulled out his wallet, and placed a wad of bills into the little girl's trembling hand. "Keep the bike, kiddo," he murmured, his voice low and rough with emotion. But this wasn't the end. He couldn't ride away, knowing a powerful man had stripped everything from a woman and her child. He told Mira to stay with her mother, promised he'd return soon, and then the engines roared to life again. The Hells Angels weren't saints, but they had their own kind of justice. They didn't use guns that day. They used truth. They tracked Hensley's office, a tall glass building gleaming in the sunlight, a monument to arrogance. The 4 men entered like thunder after lightning, boots echoing against marble floors. The receptionist froze. Ryder's eyes met Hensley's through the glass wall of his office. A man with a gold watch, a fake smile, and hands that had never worked an honest day in his life. "What is this?" Hensley scoffed as they approached. Ryder didn't shout. He placed a for sale sign on the CEO's pristine desk. "That," he said quietly, "is what your greed cost." For the first time, the polished businessman looked shaken. Ryder told him about the little girl, her starving mother under a tree, and the bicycle worth more in love than all his cars combined. Hensley tried to defend himself with business talk, but his excuses died under the fury in those men's eyes. Not criminal rage, but moral fire. They didn't hurt him. They didn't need to. Ryder leaned close and said, "You don't get to buy forgiveness, but you do get a chance to do what's right." By sunset, the news spread across town. The CEO who once fired a struggling mother had anonymously donated a year's worth of groceries to families in need, paid off hospital bills for single parents, and rehired those he'd wronged. No one knew what changed his heart, only a few rough men and a little girl with a pink bike did. When Ryder and his brothers returned to the tree that evening, Mira ran to them, her eyes wide with joy. Her mother, Clara, weak but smiling, stood behind her. The light caught her face, and Ryder noticed her trembling hand as she tried to thank him. "You don't owe us anything," he said, tipping his head as the engines cooled beside them. "Just promise you'll never give up." That night, they shared bread. The bikers, the woman, and the little girl who'd sold her bike not for toys, but for love. The sunset painted gold across the chrome, the grass, and the folded cardboard sign in Mira's lap. For a moment, the world didn't seem so broken. If this story touched your heart, reminding you that compassion can come from the most unexpected places, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to channel. Every click helps stories of real kindness reach those who need hope the most. And before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ryder's place? Sometimes all it takes is one act of courage to make the world believe in kindness again.